Go ahead and start this recording. Okay, so this is a new form that came out last week in the beginning of last week in our, I guess this is a March update. And so it's a new standalone auto-populating document that provides a really quick look at the main information of the IEP. Now, this document was mainly created in order to allow us to provide information for access and those other facilities that we may need to share information on our students with. Now, I think it could even be used for general education teachers, especially like teachers that are not going to need quite as much background on our students. And so basically it just provides that quick look at the main information of the IEP, like what are the services? What are we actually doing for the child? So it would provide information mainly from that services page of the IEP. Okay, so it does include information on special education, the related services, the supplementary aids and services, the accommodations needed for assessments, assistive technology, and any program modifications or support for personnel. The new IEP at a glance document is an auto-populating document. So what we mean by that is when you create that IEP, it automatically populates. We don't have to do anything to make it get there. And that's a pretty useful thing because it's not one more thing for the teacher to have to remember. And if you look at this screenshot, you're going to see right over here in this column under the finalization date for the IEP, that's where you're going to see at 4/25 when this document was created, immediately at 4/26, excuse me, not at 4/25, 4/26 when that document was created, at the same time of that finalization date and time, this IEP at a glance was created. And it was created from this IEP. Okay, so when you look over here in this preceding/original document, that's going to tell you which document this version of at a glance was populated from. Now, these are the conditions and circumstances that generate a IEP at a glance document. It's when a new IEP is created and finalized, or when you revise an existing IEP document, okay? So keep in mind when you go in and create an amendment, it's going to create a new at a glance because something was changed on that document. Now, I understand that it could get cumbersome because just like in the IEP, you know, with our IEPs, it lists that preceding document out to the side, but it's going to create a new at a glance each time. So as if you're a coordinator listening, or you may want to think about giving rights for deletion. And I'll say that very carefully because I'm not a fan of allowing teachers to delete documents. The district in which I just left, where I was coordinator, I did not allow teachers to delete documents, even if they created one by mistake. Maybe they opened a new form. I asked them to give me a call and tell me, or either send me an email and tell me what happened so that I could go in there and delete it, and I would be able to put the reason I deleted it. Or, you know, they had to call me and say, hey, will you delete this? So when I say delete it, it's very carefully knowing that this document is not a document required for monitoring. This is not a required document. It is a document provided to help, but it is auto-populating. So in the instance that you might have a minor typographical error or something like that, and you have to unfinalize or create that quick amendment to fix that error, like even if it's just right after you finalize and you realize, oh no, I've got to, you know, I forgot to correct something on the draft, and you have to reopen that document, well, another at a glance is going to populate. And so that's why I'm saying it might be a possibility that you want to consider as a coordinator or as the administrator over this program, possibly giving your teachers the right to delete the at-a-glance document, and that can be done when we set up our security settings in a few minutes. So just so you know up front that this document you can possibly end up with multiple at-a-glance documents depending how many times you unfinalize or create an amendment of your IEP. All right, so this is what your document will look like. I'm sure your teachers have already seen this, and you probably have already seen this, and they have probably been asking lots of questions. So I want to give you as much information as I can during this quick session. So in this at-a-glance document, you're going to see there's going to be different sections. There's a section at the top, which is our student demographic information, and then down below, here at page 1 and page 2. Now, please don't judge me on this IEP actual content, because this is a play IEP that I created in our play data. I still like to black out names if I can, because and information, because it just makes me feel better. Just going to say that. But in this, you'll see that there are special education services here, and then related services here. And there's the section for supplementary aids and services. And then down here, you see that there were no program modifications or support for personnel needed, so it's toggled here, just like on the services page of the IEP. But yet there were accommodations needed for assessment, so that's clicked, and there it shows that area. And likewise, not needed for assistive technology. Okay, so here we go. Section by section. This is your data flow. This is where your data on this form comes from. So if you look at the box in red, that's the top, the demographic information, and that's, you know, your general information: student name, date of birth, school year, grade, student ID, school information, and IEP duration, initiation, and duration dates from, to, whatever. Those things come from the IEP or from the student profile. So those are auto-populated, and we don't have to worry about any of that information. Okay? Now, next are the sections. And again, just like we just talked about on the preview, this comes from the services page. And you have the sections, like special ed, related services, all those. And then you also have the service type, the frequency, the amount of time, the beginning and ending duration date, so you would know if it was summer or school year, and the location of the services. You might give this to a related service provider, or, I don't know, a bus driver or a general education teacher, so that they have no doubt, because I know as non-special educators, sometimes those IEPs get cumbersome. So maybe they don't need the whole IEP. Maybe they need this and a little bit of the IEP instead of all of it. But this document was created as a help and an aid to provide meaningful information for people that will be working with our children with special needs. Okay? So once this has been created, all the case manager needs to do is review it, make sure it looks right, and set the status to final. That simple. Now, as is, currently, teachers and staff don't have security rights to change the document status to final. And when they look at it, this is what they'll see. They will see these two options on the document. You see this one's still in draft, so they cannot set it. There is no set document button up here like it should be. So now we are going to talk about what to do. Before we do that, like I spoke about earlier, we have some things to consider. First of all, before we get into security settings, we need to consider who needs access and for what purpose. Okay? For example, people who are going to be doing your transfers, your transfer notification groups, whoever's going to be sending and receiving those envelopes between schools, they need view access, because if they cannot view the document, it will not transfer when they are sending and receiving. So keep that in mind. Also, your special education groups, like your teachers, do you want them to be able to view, edit, set document status, and then I didn't put it in a slide, but do you want them to be able to delete the document if there are multiple copies of the same one? And then building staff, such as your principals. What rights do you want them to have before we start assigning them? So those are things to consider as the administrator. Okay? So in order to set those security preferences, first we've got to assume the administrative role. And we do that by going up to the top and assuming that administrative role in special programs. But before we talk about that, I want to talk about the appropriate way to sign in to PowerSchool Special Programs. Now, if you were at Novice last week at Allocase, then you heard Sherry and me talk about this. And I'm including it here because it is important information, and we want to try to get the word out to as many people. When we first started in special programs in 2021, we had to log in like this because all of the everything wasn't integrated yet. And so we got what we call the backdoor login to special programs. And we used this web address, this alspecialeducation.powerschool.com, in our login. We would do that, and then each school has their own unique ID. And then we have this super user, this super admin user ID and password. And I remember them telling me to guard this, you know, make sure it's just you or just somebody. But I believe we have a lot of people floating around in our districts that have this information. And I'm going to say whoever is the administrator of your PowerSchool needs to have this. And like your tech director, whoever is over PowerSchool for your district needs to have this. And maybe the coordinator or whoever manages your PowerSchool Special Programs instance. But other than that, really hardly anybody should have this login, because this login is, I mean, it gives you the keys to the kingdom. Now, when you think about this login, even if you have it, y'all shouldn't be going in to this site to log in. The appropriate way to log into special programs is through your SIS, and then when you log into your SIS, your Student Information System, the main PowerSchool hub, you would go up here to the top and use this menu, use this icon to fly out to special programs. And then once you're in special programs, that's when you would assume the system admin role. You will still use that same password for this, but you would be assuming system admin role. Now keep in mind that when you are assuming system admin role, that means you're doing something with configuration of documents. That means you're doing something with security, or you're doing something with utilities, or even submitting state reports. Those really should be the only reasons that you're assuming the system admin role. And when you do that, you want to make sure that you know who's in there doing it, because you and we all know that some people are unethical. It's a sad thing to say, but there are some people who are unethical. And some people do things that they should not be doing, and we need to make sure that we be able to keep track of what people are doing, so that if something is not done correctly, we will know who to correct, who to say, hey, we don't need to be doing that, or we need to be doing it this way. And I want to show you how this can help us keep track of that. Okay, so in just a moment, when we go in and do our security, we're going to assume the system admin role this way. In special programs, we're going to go to administration and click assume system admin role. But this is why it's important to do that. So on this screen, there's two columns. On the left side, this is a person who is logged in that back door, going straight into PowerSchool, not through SIS, and they are logging in as that admin security administrator. I was working with the district, and they were working on some documents, and I went in to say, oh, I went into events because I was trying to figure out what was going on, and I see the admin security administrator logged in. Did some things to documents. And I said, oh, okay. Well, someone who has that password did some things in the pink. Now, if you look on the right side, you'll see that is me, and I have assumed the system admin role. So I used that same password, but I logged in through the SIS, and then I assumed that system admin role. And you can see in green, everything that I did as the system admin is notated appropriately. There is no doubt what admin did that. Samantha Russell, as the system admin role, did those things. She amended the IEP. She changed the IEP. And then you can see in the blue down at the bottom on the right side, that's where I created the reevaluation or the notice and eligibility decision, and when I amended it as a user. And then you can see the next thing I did was assume that system admin role, and I did some other things. So it's important to sign in that way in order to have accountability of who is doing what in each student's file. Okay, I'm off my soapbox. Going to get back to what we need to do. So we're going to go here, administration, assume that system admin role, and now we are ready to set the security preferences for your form IEP at a glance. And this is going to be the same process for any form that you need or document that you need to configure. So you will go to administration, configuration, and document templates. So right here, administration, after you've assumed the system admin role, you'll go back to administration and configuration. And at that point, you'll go to document templates, and then you will see a screen that looks about like this. It'll have all the forms, and you'll click the lock next to IEP at a glance, since that's the document that we want to work with today. Okay, if you look down here at the bottom of the screen, you'll see an insert, and the first screen you're going to see once you click that lock is going to be the district admin category. Okay, you can see this is your security group. Now, I never mess with this first row, but for the district admin special programs, you want to give them, this is my recommendation. These settings are technically a local decision, so this is not the State Department saying, by goodness, you have to do this. This is what I am recommending, I think would be a good place to start. As the local person, you need to be the one to make this decision, or you and your system administrator. Okay, so you would want them to have view. Really, pretty much all these security groups need to be able to view this document. Now, whether or not they can edit or set the status is up to you. Now, of course, I think the system admin ought to be able to delete this document, and they have to be able to edit, even though we're really not editing it per se, like typing in the document. But in order for them to be able to set the status from draft to review to final, you have to have this edit privilege. So in order for us to have status change rights, we've got to have edit privileges. And then, of course, I like for people to be able to print the document so that they can have a copy. Okay? Now, on this next little slide right here at the bottom, on this slide, next you will toggle right here where I'm pointing and pick up another category. And these are our special education administrators. And so you can see security administrators, location-wide, and security administrators system-wide. Want them to be able to view, edit, delete, and status change rights and print. And then we'll toggle again, and these are our special educators. Now, think about this. Remember, I told you a few minutes ago, delete would be up to you. So you may want to check delete in these boxes. I would not give viewers rights to do anything but view. For the district in which I just left, I did not put my principals in those building groups. I put them in special education viewer because I wanted them to be able to view, and oftentimes I would give that viewer the right to print, because if the principal was looking at an IEP and they wanted a copy, maybe to go into a meeting or to take to a teacher, I wanted them to be able to print, but many districts do not want their viewers to be able to print. That is up to you, a local decision. So this obviously is just a suggestion. Again, like I told you before, you may want to give your teachers the right to delete this document. Now remember, this document is not a document that is required for monitoring, and that's why I'm even talking to you about teachers being able to delete it. If it were a document that was available, that needed to be there for monitoring or accountability, I would definitely tell you, do not allow teachers to delete. But because this is just a document for help, it is not a document that they're going to be looking for monitoring or accountability, I would think it would be absolutely acceptable for them to be able to delete it. So you may want to check in these columns. And remember, this is just strictly for this IEP at a glance, but any document can be configured this same way. And then finally, your building staff. If you'll notice, these building staff people already have view. They already have view checked as default. If you wanted to give them any other settings, you could, but this one's already checked for default. So you do not have to do anything to those building staff sections. Okay, this is why I told you that those people that are doing transfer envelopes need to have rights, because when they are doing those transfer envelopes, they need to make sure that they can see this. If they don't have that checked, this will not show up. And so you need to be able to, those people need to have that checked, and then that will allow them to send that to Access or any other districts where they go. Okay? Now, that really is all we have today. I did want to say one other thing. Let me go back to these permissions. If you'll notice, I didn't have create checked on any of these. And the reason create is not checked on any of them is because create is not necessary, as it's an automatically generated document. So you wouldn't need to have create there. Should you have a time where that, maybe it got deleted or whatever, as an administrator, you could go in there and add that or something like that. But other than that, you might want to add the security right to create to maybe your district administrator in case a mistake like that happened. But in general, we do not need that on the create document option. And I don't even know that it would be available in that drop-down option. When you go to create a document, I don't even think it's going to be available there. So create, it may be a moot point to click that or not. I haven't tested that, though. So if you have any questions, please reach out to Sherry or me. Like I said a little bit earlier, today is a little bit hairy day, so if you reach out to us today, we may have a delayed response as we're going to be in meetings the rest of the day, but do reach out to us. We want to help you, and also there at the bottom is our live binder address, so go there. We put reports there for you to upload into your instance. We put our recordings and our PowerPoint presentations there. There is documentation for our manuals and other information about special programs there, and we want to be of help to you. I'm going to allow you to unmute if you'd like to, so if you can't unmute, just raise your hand and I will unmute you, or you can type any questions in that box and I'll be glad to answer any questions while we're here. If not, I'm done, and I hope y'all have a great day.